Okay, in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to get started using the EcoBreed pet system. First I'm going to assume that you already have the package, this here. When you res it, it will create a folder for you, which will give you the action object, which is this, the breed object, and the information note card, which has some important scripts amended to it at the bottom. We'll get into that later. First, just res out the contents, and what you want to do to get your breed set up is you go into the EcoBreed object, and you could take them out, put them in your inventory. You just take these scripts here and transfer them into your own object, whatever your object is. For now we'll use a default prim, and simple as that. That's how you set up your own eco pet. So let's just assume for the tutorial that this is your EcoBreed object, and you want to open up the settings script, and I'll go through what a majority of these settings are used for. Now at the top you have just some default settings. For instance, I do recommend you change the secure channel to your own. Make sure that this matches the settings script secure channel, so you have the same channel in both. You would want to make a unique channel for security purposes, but also for each type of breed that you make. So if you make birds, have one for birds. If you want, have one for cats and bunnies or whatever you'd like to make. That's where you would change that, just so that there is a different level of communication for that. And don't share that with anybody. Just let that be a your own channel. Also, make sure that you do, after changing any settings before you transfer this, change the properties to no modify. That way nobody can go in and modify your settings, and other than that it can remain copy transfer just like the rest of the scripts. Now the rest of these here are just defaults and self-explanatory of the sit position and rotation, your hover text color, and the sound volume for any sounds that may be played. This setting is also very important. This helps you define whether an animal is created and sold directly by you, or if it's something that's created through breeding. So for when you leave it true, you can customize your object. It will skin itself, it will apply a skin to itself, and it's ready to go. It starts on its lifespan, and however else you set it up, it will authorize and activate for the next user. However, if this is going to be a breeded child of two parents, turn this to false. That's when you take a copy of your breed object and you put it in an action object, and define the action object as a breeding object, meaning that's where the pets come from. I'll get into more advanced simulations where they can be bred from the action or from the breed object themselves, but for now this simulation will be a very simple one. I'll go over names real quick and briefly. This is a name generator. You can turn it on or off, but basically when the breed is first created, either by you or when it's a child, it will create a name for it if this is enabled. You can even make it so that it's gender specific names, which have several different lists. You have a male suffix and a female suffix, so like you would have Katie or Kada for a would be just a random female name perhaps, or Katina, or Kato or Kabo or Kachu or Kader. These are just random things off the top of my head, but this is how it sets it up. And this list can be amended to fit the personalities of your specific breeds. But as is, it's very random. I've ran the simulation a few hundred times, and there were very few duplicates. So, moving on, just to briefly go over movement. This is how you can help define the type of movement, mostly by speed and timers. This also will reflect in how fast or how responsive the pet is during its movements, if you decide to use movement. And we'll get into physical movements and non-physical movements in another tutorial. Lifespan, to turn it on or off, is true or false. The lifespan really could also be called the death span, the span between the ages of where it may or may not die. So within the lifespan of 1 to 10 years of age, it will randomly die. So it's if you wanted it to perhaps die after 30 to 60 days, we have to define what a year is. A year is defined in minutes. Right now it's set to 1 minute, which is 60 seconds, and you can increase this. So let's say if you wanted a year to be a day, there are 1440 minutes in a day. So from that, now it will, and it's starting it off at age 0, of course, and we can start it anywhere we want. You have a minimum lifespan of 1 to 10 days. If you wanted it to be, let's say, a month to 2 months, you now have it set to for it to survive for 30 to 60 days, based on the fact that a year is 1440 minutes. So to explain what this means, the survival odds, right now it has a 5 in 1 chance of dying within that lifespan. So the higher the number, the less likely it'll die on the 30th, 31st, and subsequent days up until the maximum lifespan, which it dies at the maximum lifespan. This gives a more diverse method of defining how old these objects become, your breed objects become. 0 would be instant death when it reaches the 30-day mark. So leaving it at 5 gives it a 5 to 1 survival odds, continuing past the 30th day. All right, moving on to growth stages. This is actual resizing of the entire prim set. So what we do here is we have a 1.02. That's what I set it as. That's a 2% growth of what its size is right now. So and we have growth stages, so how many times it will attempt to grow. The time scale being in minutes, so maybe we want it to grow every 2 days. We set it at 2 days would be, of course, 1440 times 2, because this is in minutes. So it'll grow 10 times in its life, and it will have a chance to grow 10 times in its life, because we also have this filter here, which is its odds of skipping a growth stage. So if there's 10 possible or potential growth stages, if we set maybe a 3 to 1 odds of it skipping a growth stage, you could have a stunted growth where it doesn't do all 10, maybe it does 8 or 5 or 9, or it could possibly reach all 10 even with the this odds filter set. You can also set this to negative, and it'll shrink throughout its life. It all depends on what type of simulation you're trying to achieve. Now, moving on, we have hunger consumption. The hunger consumption is it's a pretty complex little system here because it uses food units which could also have a quality to them, a quality of food value to them. Let's say you eat, in a real life scenario, you eat a cheeseburger which has a certain amount of volume, and you eat or you eat a salad which has the same amount of volume as that particular cheeseburger, but it has more nutritional value to it. Food units is your volume, the quality percent, which is defined by the action object, which could be used as a food source, a breeding source, and or a home or a toy or whatever you want to use it for, or also inserted into the breed object. But the food units, how much it can consume, this would be its appetite. So it can consume between 5 to 10 food units. They could be nutritional or they could just be junk food. It depends. You could sell different qualities of food, different volumes of food, but this particular breed is going to be defined by how much it can eat in a sitting, by this amount. You set how often it looks for its food. Let's say once, maybe 3 times a day. So what am I at? Like 480. I guess that's right. Yeah, 480. Every 480 minutes, it'll check for food. It'll become it'll check to see how hungry it is. If its hunger percent is less than 100%, it'll look for food in the area. The consumption odds is set at 0 right now, which means it'll always eat if food is present. You can set this as an odds, like a 5 to 1 chance that it will eat during if food was available during when it's hungry, and then from there you also we'll go down to the hunger death here, because this will also explain your hunger percent lost for every time that you eat something, or every time you're hungry. You'll lose 5% of your total. Just to recap on the consumption part, if there's more food available than it's able to consume, or not enough, it will consume, let's say, the last drop in the bucket. If there's not 5 units available, it won't eat it. If there is at least 5 available, but the quality is would trigger more than 100% hunger, it will only eat enough to fill its appetite. So it's a self-determination based on what's available, and if it's hungry enough to eat it, or if it's within the proper thresholds and the filters. The death sequence is optional, whether or not it dies from hunger or starvation. The odds of death below this threshold, which would be your minimum percent. So like I said, you have a 0 to 100% hunger rate. 0 would be very hungry, 100% would be not hungry at all. If it's at 10% in this scenario, you will be within the hunger death threshold. The odds of death at 0 means that it will always die once it's below that threshold. -1 being it will never die if it's hungry, and at -1, meaning it would never die, meaning it would only die within, in our scenario, as within its lifespan. You also have the option of maybe a 5 to 1, which gives it a survival odds to survive past if it's within that threshold. Gives it more of a chance to survive and allow someone to come along and feed it. The hunger percent start, self-explanatory. It would start at 40% in this simulation, saying that it's hungry when it's born, but it's not going to die immediately. It still has if it's going to lose 5% each hunger cycle of, well, 3 times a day, it still has a ways to go, several days before it really needs food. You can set this however you need to achieve your optimal hunger and growth cycles. Now, getting on to the breeding. This has a diverse series of filters and definitions to allow you to create a breed that matches what you're looking for. The breed time, I set it to 1 for testing, like most of the others, just to have rapid reproduction, growth, and lifespan sequences. But for this scenario, it'll look for a mate every 1440 minutes, which is once a day. Both the male and the female would have to be within the ready to breed, and for the breeding sequence to be initialized. You also have failed odds, which means like miscarriage or just a bad conception. You could set that, high as you would like, so that and maybe even have rapid breeding, but high odds, to define something that perhaps is really hard to produce offspring or whatever. For this situation, 0 means that it will always breed when they find their mates and they copulate. So we have next the litter settings, which the size of the amount of offspring that a female will carry. You would have, for this scenario, it's 3 to 7. If you wanted something along the lines of just only 1 child born per litter per birth, then you would just set both to 1 or 1 to 10. To understand the next setting, which is the larger litters being more rare. Anything greater than 5 or closer to 10 would be more rare if we had this set to true, meaning more likely you'll have 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 and 5, sometimes 6, but 10 will still occur, just more rare. The maximum number of litters that a female can have is set here. I was saying 5 throughout its lifespan. If you wanted to continuously breed forever and ever and ever, just make it a large number, 50,000, 100,000, whatever you think is appropriate. There is no infinite setting for this, but particularly you could go ahead and set it to a large number. Breeding age, minimum and maximum, this is their fertility age. So however you define years also defines their age. So in this scenario, from the moment they're born, they're able to give birth, but let's just say, they're human, and remind you, humans are, whatever. This would be like a likely scenario for humans. Whereas, oh God, I just feel dirty doing that. So 18 to 40 would be your minimum and maximum childbearing age. But I'm right with how I originally did that. But some animals, their fertility age range is might be younger or older. This helps you define that. Now you can set your gender preferences. Whether or not it's a unisex is set here. True means there's a male and a female gender. False would indicate a unisex type of an animal. While it's true, you also have the female odds. The odds of there being females born. 2 indicates a 50-50 chance. While you can have some litters that are 100% male or 100% female, throughout 100 or more, the odds are pretty consistently 50-50 at the rate of 2, which is indicated over here. 1 would be always female. Greater than 2 would be more and more likely males. To understand why that might be a good thing for even the same specific pet. You could possibly have a genetic strain that you include separately. You can have all the same settings, but maybe just change the female odds so that the that certain breeds are certain strains, certain genetic strains are more likely to have male or female offspring. So from there we have require partners, which means whether or not they are asexual or they need a partner to reproduce. If this is false, this means that they don't need a breeding partner. They can breed all on their own, and coupled with the with or without the asexual part of it all, or the unisex and the asexual. They whether or not it's if you have genders that are true, so that means there's male and female. If you make this false in this scenario, the males are, I guess, redundant. The females breed by themselves, but the males won't. And you can do it in a number of different things with these settings to create the appropriate simulation. Unique partners, that is essentially disabling incest. This will make sure that if there's any similar lineage, brother, sister, stepbrother, not stepbrother, more like half brother, half sister, anything where they have similar parents or grandparents, that they will not breed with each other if this is set to true. If it's false, it's anything goes. Keep partners. This is a monogamy setting. That means that once they've established their partnership, they will never breed with another partner, even if one of the breeding pair dies, or is lost, or is taken, or is moved, or sold, or whatever. If they are monogamous, they should be kept together. You can't always determine which partners they will choose. However, if you keep the setting true for monogamy, you can separate a breeding pair, a male and a female, and put them separately until they get to know each other, so to speak, and they will very likely become breeding pairs. Next is your skin sets and your settings here. For that, I'll go into more detail on this in the next tutorial, but for now I'll just briefly go through this. You can disable skins here. You can decide not to use the core skinning component and do your own randomization through extensions or other methods. But for the core skinning, it allows you to select a minimum and maximum number of skin sets. Just imagine a skin set as how this object is right now. He's got like a grayish color to him, and black eyes and whatnot, no shine or anything else fancy to him. However, if you were to, let me show you on the wiki. Within the methods section, you define what the texture, the color, shine, glow, sculpt, and also the generation of which it's unlocked. So, for example, if you set the generation to 5, it will that skin will remain dormant until the 5th generation. Odds are also another way of helping make it rare. Like I said, we'll get into this more in the next tutorial. However, to elaborate a little more on the skins, you can create multiple skin sets, and each skin set will have its own key or a name, an identifier. And with this setting, 1 to 5 means that it will store 1 to 5 of those skins, and if pure breed is disabled, it could use bits and pieces from each of those. Let's say it has 5. You use different parts of those skin sets to create one unique skin. If it's pure breed and it has 5 skins, you would have just one coat, which, by the way, can be a number of different things. It could be a little hat that you put on it. It could be the type of eyes, the shape of the ears, the color of its coat, the the shine, a number of different things to give it its own skin set. But pure breed, it would only have one skin set. The rest would be dormant based on the odds provided and the generation provided. It passes these on, coupled with the skin sets of from both the mother, the father, the grandparents of both the mother and the father, all combined into one. The core code will create a custom skin set for its offspring and save between 1 to 5 of those skin sets as dormant genes to later pass on. And like I said, if it's false, it could also wind up, if the pure breed set to false, it could also wind up with a mixed set. So I hope all this made a good amount of sense. Like I said, I'll be going into the skin classes and even the animation classes, which is your prim animations, in a later tutorial.